Los Angeles, a city of contrasts. From the opulence of luxury mansions perched in the hills to the frenetic pace of its bustling streets, it's a place where dreams are born and destroyed in equal measure. On the outskirts of this glittering metropolis lies Mulholland Drive, a winding road that offers breathtaking views by day and an eerie solitude by night. It's here, against the backdrop of wealth and ambition, that our story begins. Elias Rothchild, a name synonymous with power and prestige, was a man who seemed to have it all. A real estate mogul who had built his empire from the ground up, Elias was accustomed to bending the world to his will. He controlled everything and everyone around him with a ruthless precision. But while his wealth could buy mansions, luxury cars, and influence, it couldn't buy the one thing he craved most: love. And when love remained elusive, Elias's carefully constructed facade began to crack, revealing a darker, more dangerous side. Then there was Zara Fontaine, a small-town girl from Oaks, who arrived in Los Angeles with nothing but dreams of stardom and a backpack of clothes. Bright-eyed and determined, Zara thought she had found a shortcut to success when she caught the attention of the powerful Elias Rothchild. What began as an arrangement filled with promises of luxury and opportunity quickly turned into something far more sinister. Zara would soon learn that the glittering world Elias offered came at a price she might not be willing to pay. What happens when ambition collides with obsession? When the desire for freedom meets the unyielding grip of control? Elias Rothchild first saw Zara Fontaine at an exclusive charity gala, an event shimmering with chandeliers and filled with Los Angeles's elite. Among the glittering crowd, she stood out, young, vibrant, and full of life. She wasn't like the others. Zara's energy, her ambition, and that spark of determination in her eyes reignited something within him, something he thought he had lost. For the first time in years, Elias felt alive. For Zara, the gala was an opportunity, a chance to mingle with the powerful and influential, a world far removed from the struggles of her small-town upbringing. When Elias approached her, his charm disarming and his presence commanding, she felt both intimidated and intrigued. He represented everything she thought she wanted: success, security, and a path out of the dead-end jobs and cramped apartments that had defined her life in Los Angeles thus far. Their whirlwind romance began that night. Elias wasted no time showering Zara with gifts, designer clothes, exclusive experiences, and even a luxury apartment in West Hollywood. He opened doors she never imagined possible, introducing her to industry insiders and bankrolling her acting classes. For a moment, it seemed like a dream come true. Zara, who had once struggled to make ends meet, found herself living in a world of privilege and opportunity. But dreams, as they say, can quickly turn into nightmares. Elias's generosity came with invisible strings that tightened with each passing day. He began dictating Zara's schedule, questioning her friendships, and insisting she prioritize him above all else. What initially felt like care and attention started to feel suffocating, like a cage gilded in gold. Zara, though grateful for his support, began to see the cost of the life Elias had built for her. Elias, for his part, couldn't help but see Zara as an extension of his empire, a possession he had claimed. To him, Zara wasn't just a woman. She was a symbol of his vitality, his ability to conquer and control. He believed their relationship was an unspoken contract, one that bound her to him in exchange for the lifestyle he provided. What Zara didn't realize, though, was that Elias always played to win. He wasn't the kind of man to let go easily, and he wasn't above bending, or breaking, the rules to ensure he stayed on top. What started as a romantic pursuit would soon turn into a dangerous game, one where the stakes were higher than Zara could ever have imagined. And in this game, Elias had no intention of losing, no matter the cost. Zara Fontaine's dreams of stardom, once so vivid, began to dim. Despite the connections Elias had promised and the doors he had supposedly opened, her acting career seemed stuck. Small roles led to even smaller auditions, and whispers followed her wherever she went, whispers of her association with Elias Rothchild. Casting directors viewed her not as a rising talent, but as a kept woman, a plaything of one of LA's wealthiest men. Slowly, the life she had thought would elevate her began to feel like a trap. The suffocation grew unbearable, and then, seemingly out of nowhere, Zara met Jasper Reeves. He was everything Elias wasn't: young, passionate, and unpretentious. A film student with dreams of his own, Jasper treated Zara like an equal, not an accessory. They met by chance at a cafe in West Hollywood, and their conversations soon became a lifeline for Zara. With Jasper, she felt seen, not for her beauty or her connection to a powerful man, but for her ideas, her humor, and her dreams. For the first time in years, she glimpsed the freedom she had nearly forgotten she craved. Elias, however, wasn't blind. He noticed the changes in Zara, the guarded way she held her phone, her vague explanations for her whereabouts, the distance that had crept into her demeanor. His possessive instincts, always simmering beneath the surface, began to boil over. Zara was his. He had built her life, shaped her world, and in his mind, she owed him everything. The idea of her slipping away was not something Elias could tolerate. Their arguments became more frequent and more heated. Zara accused Elias of controlling her, of treating her like a possession. Elias, in turn, reminded her of all he had done for her, the opportunities he had provided, the life he had given her. His tone shifted from pleading to threatening, his desperation growing with every confrontation. And yet, Zara's resolve only hardened. She knew she couldn't stay, not if she ever wanted to reclaim her independence. The night she finally made her decision, she sat alone in her apartment, staring at a packed bag. Her heart raced as she thought of the confrontation that might await her. She had no illusions about Elias. She knew he wouldn't let go easily. What Zara didn't realize was that Elias's obsession had already begun to spiral into something darker. When she walked out of his life, she would set in motion a chain of events far more dangerous than she could imagine. The cracks in their relationship were now deep fissures, and soon everything would come crashing down. Elias Rothchild had built his entire life on control. From his sprawling real estate empire to the relationships he cultivated, everything in his world moved according to his rules. But Zara Fontaine was slipping through his fingers, and for the first time, Elias felt powerless. The thought of her leaving, walking away from the life he had crafted for her, was unbearable. His desperation grew into something darker, something far more dangerous. If he couldn't have Zara, then no one could. The confrontation came one evening when Elias arrived unannounced at Zara's West Hollywood apartment. She was startled to see him, his face a mask of fury and heartbreak. Her packed bag sat by the door, a silent declaration of her intent. Elias demanded answers, his voice low and cold. Zara, summoning every ounce of courage she had, told him the truth. She was leaving. She needed to reclaim her life, to find herself again, and to pursue a future on her own terms. Elias's reaction was a volatile mix of rage and pleading. He alternated between promises to change and veiled threats. "You'll never work in this town again," he snarled. But Zara stood firm, though her heart pounded with fear. As she closed the door behind him, she felt a mix of relief and dread. She had taken the first step toward freedom, but she had no idea the danger that now loomed. Elias, however, was not a man to accept defeat. In his mind, Zara's departure wasn't just a betrayal, it was a challenge. His carefully curated world was crumbling, and he was determined to rebuild it, by any means necessary. Enter Dante Wolfe, a shadowy figure whispered about in the darker corners of the business world. A former military operative turned hitman, Wolfe was known for his precision and discretion. He was the kind of man you hired when you wanted a problem to disappear without a trace. Their meeting took place in the basement of one of Elias's downtown properties, far from prying eyes. The air was heavy with tension as Elias outlined the job. "It needs to look like an accident," he said, his voice steady but ice-cold. Wolfe, with his scarred face and deadened eyes, listened without reaction, nodding once in agreement. The plan was simple but brutal. Zara's death would appear as a tragic mishap, a freak accident on the winding roads of Mulholland Drive. Wolfe set to work immediately, studying Zara's routines and identifying the perfect moment to strike. Elias, meanwhile, watched from the sidelines, his obsession blinding him to the moral abyss he was plunging into. He justified his actions with twisted logic. Zara had betrayed him, and this was the only way to regain control. But as the plan moved forward, one question lingered in the shadows. At what point does love turn into obsession? And how far would someone go to keep that control? The pieces were now in place, the players moving toward their inevitable collision. The cat-and-mouse game had begun, and Zara Fontaine, unknowingly, was at the center of it all. It was a foggy July night on Mulholland Drive, the winding road eerily silent save for the hum of Zara Fontaine's car. She had just finished a long day, her thoughts consumed by the possibilities of a fresh start, free from Elias Rothchild's suffocating grasp. The road ahead seemed like a metaphor for her life. Dark, uncertain, but full of promise. What Zara didn't know was that danger was already closing in. A pair of headlights appeared in her rearview mirror, growing closer with each curve of the road. At first, she paid little attention. Mulholland Drive was known for its late-night drivers, and she assumed it was just another car. But as the vehicle crept closer, unease began to creep in. The SUV wasn't overtaking her. It was tailing her, matching her every move. Zara's grip on the steering wheel tightened as the unease turned into fear. She pressed her foot on the accelerator, trying to put some distance between her car and the one behind her. The SUV followed suit, its presence looming larger in her rear-view mirror. The fog grew thicker, the road more treacherous with every mile, but the SUV stayed close, its headlights like twin predators stalking their prey. As Zara approached a sharp turn with a steep drop-off, the SUV suddenly surged forward. Its front bumper made contact with the rear of her car, a deliberate, calculated nudge. The impact sent Zara's Honda Civic into a spin. She fought desperately to regain control, her hands trembling as she turned the wheel, but the narrow road and slick surface gave her no chance. Her car collided with the guardrail, which crumpled on impact. The Civic teetered on the edge for what felt like an eternity before gravity took over. Zara screamed as the car plunged into the ravine, tumbling end over end. Glass shattered, metal crumpled, and darkness consumed her world. Above, the SUV paused briefly at the edge of the ravine. The driver, Dante Wolfe, surveyed the scene below. From his vantage point, the wreckage looked complete, irreversible. Satisfied with his work, he drove off into the fog, confident that no one could have survived such a fall. But the story didn't end there. Against all odds, Zara clung to life, her battered body barely moving amid the wreckage. What Elias Rothchild and Dante Wolfe hadn't planned for was her resilience. Zara Fontaine was still alive, and her survival would set in motion a chain of events that neither man could control. The morning after the crash, the first rays of sunlight illuminated a scene of devastation at the base of Mulholland Drive. Twisted metal, shattered glass, and scorched earth marked the spot where Zara Fontaine's car had come to rest. For most, it would have seemed like an open-and-shut case, a tragic accident on one of LA's most dangerous roads. But Detective Imogen Watson wasn't most people. A rising star in the LAPD, Watson had a reputation for following her instincts, and something about this crash didn't sit right with her. The skid marks on the road were too precise, the damage to the guardrail too deliberate. As she examined the scene, her sharp eyes picked up inconsistencies that pointed to something far more sinister than an accident. Her suspicions deepened when she learned the identity of the victim. Zara Fontaine wasn't just another driver. She was a rising actress with a well-publicized connection to one of the city's wealthiest men, Elias Rothchild. A name like his came with power, but it also came with secrets. At the hospital, Zara lay in a medically induced coma, her body battered but alive. While doctors worked to stabilize her, Detective Watson began piecing together the story behind the crash. Her first clue came from Zara's injuries, patterns that didn't align with a simple car accident. Defensive wounds on her arms hinted at a struggle before the crash. As Watson dug deeper, a picture of Zara's life began to emerge. Friends and acquaintances described a woman who had felt trapped, suffocated by a controlling relationship. And then there was Jasper Reeves, the young film student who had been Zara's confidant in her final days with Elias. His account of her fears, her desperation to escape, added weight to Watson's growing theory. This was no accident. Meanwhile, Elias Rothchild played the part of the concerned ex, expressing shock and sadness at Zara's condition. But Watson's sharp eyes caught the cracks in his facade, the clenching of his fists, the flicker of something dark in his eyes whenever Zara's name was mentioned. The more he spoke, the more Watson was convinced he was hiding something. The breakthrough came 3 weeks later, when Zara woke from her coma. Her body was weak, but her mind was clear, and she remembered everything. She recounted the night of the crash, the SUV tailing her, the deliberate nudge that sent her car over the edge, and the fear that had gripped her in those final moments. Her testimony was the missing piece Watson needed. Armed with Zara's statement, Watson turned her attention to Elias. Cell phone records placed him near Mulholland Drive on the night of the crash, despite his claims of being home. Financial records revealed a significant withdrawal from one of his offshore accounts days before the incident. And then there was Dante Wolfe, the hitman Elias had hired. A chance arrest on an unrelated case led to Wolfe's name coming up in connection with the crash, and it wasn't long before Watson connected the dots. The final blow came during a raid on Elias's mansion. Hidden in a secret safe, detectives found damning evidence. Detailed plans of Zara's route, correspondences with Wolfe, and financial records of the payment for the hit. The evidence was irrefutable. Elias Rothchild was arrested in a dramatic takedown that sent shockwaves through Los Angeles. His empire crumbled as his darkest secrets were dragged into the light. Dante Wolfe, facing a mountain of evidence, confessed to his role in the crash, sealing Elias's fate. Zara, still recovering, found solace in knowing her courage had brought down one of LA's most dangerous men. Detective Watson, relentless in her pursuit of justice, had unraveled a web of lies, jealousy, and a deadly plot, proving once again that even the most powerful are not above the law. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another gripping tale from Vick's Veil of Justice. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe.